Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nur Shifa from Queens, New York, and I recently graduated in May with a degree in economics and English on the pre-medicine and pre-health track, and I'll be applying to medical school for the next cycle. I'm extremely happy to be able to participate in TASMiNA's Horizon project. This episode is a continuation of an introducing series of community professionals within TASMiNA who are educators, entrepreneurs, community activists, etc., who have all succeeded in their life within North America. The main objective of this program is to learn and follow the success of their achievements. This program can be especially beneficial for the young adults of our community who can benefit from learning from these life stories by seeking assistance and guidance from them as well. The name of the program itself, Horizon, reflects a point of change in that person's life. So today I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Farzan, who is a successful medical practitioner in the United States. Dr. Farzan, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
And I'm going to be conducting the interview with you today. So I think just to start off, it would be beneficial if you could just introduce yourself, a little bit about what you do current day.
My name is Dr. Thahir Farzan. I'm currently practicing as a surgical oncologist in Texas. In addition, I do critical care and robotic surgery. I'm married with 4 children, settled in Texas, and originally from Sri Lanka, Negombo.
And so that leads us to our first question about what your childhood life was like, your town, your parents, your early education back in Sri Lanka.
That was an interesting time because I was born and bred in a very small village. I don't want to call it a town. Now probably it is a town. We were very few people in the area, and I went to a small school called Al-Falah Mahavidyalaya, who has never had a successful student who passed the 5th grade scholarship exam. I happened to be the first one to pass, and I went to Royal College for my 6th grade. And thanks to my father, who was a school teacher, who literally coached me to get through that exam. And then from Royal College, after I finished my medical school, after I finished my college, I got into dental surgery in Peradeniya. I was there for about 3 months. I just didn't like what I was doing. Then I applied for some scholarships and got a scholarship program, got accepted for a scholarship for a student exchange program in Pakistan. I went there and finished my medical degree.
That's so interesting that you actually started off in dental surgery and then switched over.
Right.
And then you had mentioned your dad and how he was a school teacher. And that leads us a little bit into our second question about how I believe that family is the backbone to things that we do. And I'm sure, as you've mentioned, that your family has greatly contributed to your success. So what are ways that they've done that? And do you have any other role models that you followed that help you get through just your life path?
Obviously, you can never do it alone. So it takes a village to raise a child, they say. So it's a lot of contribution from different people that contributed to everyone's growth, including myself. My parents played a bigger role because we were financially, economically poor. So all of us knew, including me as a child, and my parents knew, the only way out of that was education. So the primary focus of my family was education. Me, my sisters, all of us were pushed and made to understand the importance of education. And my parents just did not play a passive role like most parents do, just push kids to study. But they played an active role in the sense they made sure the homework was done. They made sure they were giving us more work to do to sharpen our skills and knowledge. And literally, they held my hands and walked me through the 5th grade scholarship exam, literally. And of all the exams I have taken, that was one exam I went without any tension, without any doubt that I would pass, because it was my parents were behind me. After that, all throughout my life, everybody has contributed. My family contributed financially to some extent to cover the cost of different things while I was in Sri Lanka in medical school. When I came to United States, many people contributed to my growth. Dr. Fahmi, I can say, who was my kind of role model, who helped me to, set my foot here in the United States. And he was kind of my mentor in my medical school as he was my senior. When I came to United States, a lot of people helped me, stepped out of their way to accommodate me, like Brother Shafi here in the United States, and his family, his wife, and everybody who treated me like their family member. And many other Americans, including some Jewish people who gave me a hand when I really needed one. The first program that I joined, my program director was a Jew, and he was nice enough to hire me in place of other people and train me to become an internist. My fellowships I did in many places were all Christian Americans. Everybody saw something in me. They thought that they could make me a good physician and help me out. And of course, the community around me is very helpful. Even now, I live in a town where I'm the only Sri Lankan, literally, and the locals, Americans, whites and blacks and Hispanics, they all treat us like family, and that gives us the strength to stay here and succeed.
Yeah, it's so nice to even hear some people from our own community that have contributed to your success and in the US. Um, and then how were you able to decide that medicine was actually something that you wanted to pursue, and that how did you go about that, like in higher education?
So, if you want to be successful in something, there are two things that you need to pursue to focus on. Number one is what you like. You want to do something that you like. You don't want to do something you don't like because you're going to be doing it for the rest of your life. So I had this passion when I was a kid. I was impressed and I admired all the doctors whom I visited. One of my great uncles happened to be an Ayurvedic doctor. I did not know the difference between Ayurvedic and allopathy at that time. And he was a great doctor. He was admired by people. He went out of his way to take care of people. And I wanted to be like him. That was the first thing. I was probably 6 years old when I decided I wanted to become a doctor. Then the next thing is to find out what you're good at. So you have to combine both. Just because you like something, you don't want to do it if you're not good at it. So you want to know whether you're good at it. And with time, although I had my reservations about will I be a good doctor or a surgeon, it took some time for me to find out that I probably would be good at what I do if I become a physician. Then when I started doing some surgeries with my seniors, I realized I had some built-in skills that I could use if I become a surgeon. So the decisions about what I'm doing now was not just made in one day. It was made as I learned about myself and the field I was getting into.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the process of doing that right now. And so it's nice. Like I worked at a pediatric clinic while I was in undergrad, and I think that really solidified for me like this is something that I can do and that I'm good at as equally as I am interested in it. So then how was your life like in Pakistan when you were studying for your medical degree?
So when I chose to go to Pakistan, it wasn't a choice by, I wanted to do it. I just didn't have another way. I lost medical school entry by, I think, 2 points in A levels, as most of us do who go to to dental school. There was nothing wrong with the dental school. It just was not my interest, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be good at it. And I did it for about 3 months, and then I started looking elsewhere, and I found this scholarship program. It was an exchange between Sri Lankan students and Pakistani students under SARC. So two students from Sri Lanka would go to Pakistan, two will come from Pakistan to Sri Lanka. So I applied. I was on top of the line because I was already in dental school, and I went in there. And initially, my experience was not pleasant, let's put it that way. I landed in a place called Multan, which is very hot. Temperatures go to like 123 degrees, no air conditioners. And it's a big town. But soon I learned the place harbored one of the most prestigious medical school called Minister Medical College. And I met Dr. Fahmy there. He was finally a medical student at that time. He made my life a little easier and showed me the path to walk. And I really enjoyed my stay. I do, if you want me to know, I have more Pakistani friends than Sri Lankan friends. Mingled with them so quickly, learned their language, and it was probably my best time of my life. Those 5 years or 5.5 years I spent in Pakistan, and the learning was totally hands-on. Patients were way more more than willing to let us examine them and learn from them. And pathology was plenty, and we would see both the early stage and the late stage, late stages we don't see in the United States as much. And I used to have the habit of going to the emergency room every week to spend the whole night there just to get some experience. And they welcomed me and taught me literally every aspect of emergency care. Not at the level of the medical student, probably at the level of the registrar at that time, was like a senior resident. And when I came out, I was extremely confident about what I was doing from there. And I'm really thankful and I'm indebted to that place for making me who I am. And I may be wrong about that, but I really doubt that I would have gotten the same experience had I stayed in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, it's so nice that you were also able to get so much hands-on opportunities to further your practice. And so then what did you do after you received your medical degree in Pakistan? Did you go back to Sri Lanka and work there? Did you work somewhere else?
So my past always, shapes your future. You are too young to know, but in 1983, I was a student on the day of so-called Black July. I happened to be in Colombo. So I saw this racist situation in Sri Lanka, people being brutally murdered and being burnt alive. That day, I had decided I was going to go out of the country. So I was just sixth grade at that time. So when I finished my medical school, my goal was to go to UK and to do my rest of my career to settle out there. But being in Pakistan kind of changed my thinking because I happened to meet some very good surgeons from UK who advised me to come to United States instead of going to UK because they were coming to UK for their further training to enhance their knowledge and skills. They were frequently coming to United States, attending conferences and meetings. And I thought I was going to go out of my country anyway. Why not just go to the best place? So that's how I decided to come to United States. In fact, the decision was made close to my final year, very close to my final exams. And then I went back to Sri Lanka and I took my United States medical licensing exams. Within about 5 months period, I did both step 1 and 2. Then, of course, you want to secure your lives, your future. And when you come to United States as a foreign graduate, the chances of getting into a successful career is about 40 to 44%, statistically speaking. So you have about 55% chance of failure. Because of that, I wanted to be registered in Sri Lanka. So I did my internship in Sri Lanka, got my full license, and then I came to United States. So I knew I could go back to Sri Lanka in case things don't work out. So that's what made me come to United States. But I had already made that decision about 2 to 3 years prior to coming to United States. I just did not know how I was going to do it, but I knew I wanted to do it.
Yeah, it seems to me that like in every step of your life, you always had like a backup plan. Like there was always a plan A, plan B, a plan C.
That's true.
So then what year did you actually end up leaving Sri Lanka? And how did you start your career here in the US?
So it was early 2001. I had applied from Sri Lanka for residencies and I came here for the interviews, January 2001. And I had plenty of interviews to attend to and I matched to an internal medicine program. Actually, it was pre-matched. They offered me the position before the match, so I had to withdraw from the match. My goal was to become a surgeon at that time, but when a pre-match internal medicine position was offered to me, I didn't have the guts to say no to, so I consulted some of my friends, including Dr. Fahmy, who advised me to just go ahead and accept it, to just get into the stream. So I got into internal medicine and started it in 2001 July. And some of the colleagues, like Dr. Kalik, who was also an internal medicine residency at that time, parallel to me, was a source of advice and help because he had been here in US before me. Then I finished my medical school, internal medicine residency in 2004 with an idea of switching my career to surgery. At that point, many seniors, mostly Americans, advised me not to, advised me to go into either cardiology or critical care. I had a passion for critical care, so I decided to do critical care. So I joined Mount Sinai Hospital surgery department to do a fellowship in critical care. So I finished that one, and still, my surgical hands were still itching to do surgery. I thought the critical care procedures would kind of calm me down. It didn't. So then I was looking for a surgical option. Then I met a gynecologist by the name Dr. Anderson, an African-American lady, who sat and talked to me for a few minutes, and she told me I would make a great GYN oncologist, gynecological oncologist. I had no idea what that was. And then she explained to me a little bit, and then I found out there were only 29 spots in the whole country for training. This is an impossible task for a foreign graduate. But I thought I'll give it a shot. They have to hire 29 people. Why not me? So then I had to do a residency in OBGYN, an entire 4 years, to be able to apply for that 29 spots. So I took my chances and applied for an OBGYN residency and finished my 4 years, applied for fellowship. Alhamdulillah, I got into Mayo Clinic for my GYN oncology residency program. By then, the number of spots had grown to 38 because it was almost 5 years after I initially looked into. So I finished my GYN oncology fellowship, which included advanced robotic surgery training, and then I finished everything in 2012. So I started my medical school in 1992 and finished my last training in 2012. It took only 20 years.
It's a long road. And you have a lot of experience in a variety of fields.
Yeah, I'm board certified in internal medicine, critical care, obstetrics and gynecology, and GYN oncology. I think I'm the only one in the United States who has all four.
That's interesting that you also did GYN and specifically in oncology. That's something that I'm extremely interested in pursuing in the future. So it's interesting to know that someone within our community also has experience within these fields.
Yep.
And then what are some challenges that you definitely probably underwent through all of these, in the last 20 years that you were switching fields and completing all these different fellowships? What are some challenges you faced within the US?
Challenges, these things are not something for everyone to do. So it's not something that you apply and you get in. Like for those 38 spots when I was applying for GYN oncology, more than 2,000 applicants. All of them were board certified gynecologists, who had research background and high in their profile. So competing with them is a challenge. You need to stay ahead. You have to show something that others don't have. So I always thought of myself as when I'm presenting for an interview, when I'm looking for a job or a training position or something competitive, I always thought to myself, before I step there or before even I apply, why should that person hire me, not the others? There got to be something special about me. Otherwise, I'm not going to be successful. And many people fail because I think they don't think that way. It's not that I was special, but I had to make something special. I had to have an answer in the tip of my tongue. And you have to build your CV in such a way that something stands out. Something may or may not be important, but something should stand out. So that's the challenge. So you have to build your CV and navigate through all these things. We are competing with the rest of the world, not just in the United States, for every spot. Why would they not hire a Harvard graduate and hire somebody from Pakistan? That was my point when I was applying for these very difficult competitive fellowships. So I had to show them it was worth hiring me. So that was the biggest challenge. On top of that, stepping into a new land, learning the new laws, rules, new lifestyle was a separate challenge that you have to be able to navigate through. And the last thing is figuring out what you would be doing with all that effort that you're putting in. You don't want those efforts to go wasted. So every minute you spend in learning or training, you have to have an idea about how you're going to use it in the future. So you have to, mold your training with an expectation that you're going to use that time and effort that you spend in some way, either to help you, your family, or somebody else. So that was a challenge. And you have to think through every little aspect of your day or minute, literally.
Yeah. And then you had also briefly mentioned earlier robotics. So how did you get involved in that? And I understand medicine is always progressing and always evolving. It's an ever-evolving field. So how did you get your hands into robotics?
So the robotic surgery was first funded as a research project by Department of Defense of the United States. They wanted U.S. surgeons to operate on the casualties in foreign land, American casualties in foreign land. That was the goal. So billions of dollars were poured into a company. Was hired to do that. Eventually, Department of Defense scrapped the project. So the company that was doing it switched their names and produced the first robot, which they called it Da Vinci. that was produced in 2004 for testing purposes. I think in 2005 it was being used in the United States for the first time. I got my hands on the robotic surgery in 2007 when I was a third year OBGYN resident. Out of my residency, they wanted to choose one resident to send for training, and I happened to be the one chosen that year. Was the first resident in training to go for they call it an animal lab. We had to operate on an animal with a robot first. And I was given that opportunity. I did it in November 2007. And the following week, I was operating on a real patient. And that was my first surgery. Then going to Mayo Clinic in 2009 for my robotic surgery fellowship opened a whole new way, because our department in Mayo Clinic owned 4 robots. So we were doing about 3 robotic surgeries per day with each robot. That's about 12 surgeries, robotic surgeries in our department, OBGYN department, per day. So it was a huge number of robotic surgery. So, and I had signed up for this fellowship program, which does advanced robotic surgery, not just the typical surgeries. Those surgeries which typically would take an open approach and length of stay in the hospital of 2 to 3 weeks for the patients. We were doing it with the tiny little holes in the belly and sending them home the next day with minimal blood loss and exceptional results. So that is how I got into it. It was my passion to do robotic surgery. It was hard initially to learn the art of doing it, because you're not next to the patient, you're sitting in a console. And eventually I became one of the few people in the country to be trained to do advanced robotic cancer surgery with a good result. I mean, the results are measured in many ways, and with equal or better results than open surgery in terms of both the initial outcome and cancer outcome. And also I became proficient enough to do it at almost half the time that it would take to do an open surgery. Initially, robotic surgeries took longer than the open surgery, twice as much time. So I could bring it down to 50% of the time that would take for an open surgery. Yeah. And I do now about 200 to 300 robotic surgeries a year.
Oh, wow. That is extremely impressive. And then I always think it's extremely important to have some sort of work-life balance. I think that's what pushes us forward, and it's what we're able to focus more on our careers when we have the rest of our life in control. So what are some of the things that you do outside of medicine? What are some of your hobbies, your sports activities?
I have to say I'm pretty bad at that. I'm not good at it at all. So I do not have a work-life balance, but I would not advise anybody to follow me on that, because I am the only GYN oncologist in about 500 miles around me. So I don't have a luxury of picking and choosing when I'm working, when I'm not working. Many times the phone calls are from the operating room with them halfway through the surgery for me to help them to finish the surgery, or stop a massive bleeding, or repair a accidentally cut bladder, ureter, or something like that. Those things, it could be at 3 in the morning, it could be 4 in the evening, or, any time. There's no holidays or anything. If I'm in town, I have to go and help. So I chose a place where I thought I would be most useful to the people around me, rather than choosing a place where I would have more time for myself and my family. I guess it was the choice. But if you want to have a really life balance, spending enough time with your family, which is extremely important, and taking care of your health as well. So you have to be very careful about choosing where you want to practice based on your specialty. It's not just for medicine, for anything you do. You need to make sure that you will be able to take time when you need it. And so because of that, I really don't have any hobbies. I just don't have time for it. Usually I go home around 9 or 10 p.m. at night every day, including weekends. And now I'm in my office finishing up some paperwork. So it's a lot. And or if you talk to people who are extremely successful, so they did what I did. They didn't take a shortcut. So, or they did more than what I did. So, it's a balance of what you want in your life. If you want to reach the peak, then you don't have a choice. You have to put in the hours that everybody else did. Or you can have a balance of where what you think is, this is enough for me, and I want to make sure that I spend enough time with my family and friends and on yourself. then you have to walk that fine line. But it's the choice, I think, you make, and remember, the choice is yours, so are the consequences.
Yeah, that's some really great advice. And then I guess to just kind of wrap up this interview, you've left us with so many pieces of advice, but is there something that you would finally like to say to everyone that's watching, to the younger generation as well as to everyone else in our community?
So I always think about the things that I did wrong, and I always advise people not to do those mistakes that I made. I think if I had not made those mistakes, I could have reached the peak in medicine where I am now, at least about 15 years earlier, 10 to 15 years earlier. That's a lot of time. The most important thing is respecting time. I find youngsters, including my children, not having much time, much respect for time. And anything you can do today should not be done tomorrow. And this taking time off in between O levels or A levels or high school and college, or I think it's a total waste of time. People justify it by saying I'm gaining some work experience. No, you don't. You will get work experience when you start working. And the earlier you start, earlier you will finish, earlier you will climb up to the highest position that you will ever reach, and you will spend most of your life in the highest position. So, suppose say you want to do a fellowship in your case, for example. So, you don't want to do a residency and then practice for 5 years and then do a fellowship. You could be in that consultant level 5 years earlier if you start right away. So you want to reach the peak position that you can be in your life at the earliest age possible. So you spend most of your life before you retire at that position. So that is number one, respecting time. The secondly, the information. You have to have every bit of the information about the field that you are looking for. If you don't have it, you're going to miss an opportunity that is there that you just don't know it's there. So many of us miss a lot of opportunities in life just because we do not know that there's an opportunity or how to get it, how to reach it. In the age of internet now, which I didn't have the benefit of during my life, there's no excuse for not sitting in front of a computer. And we used to say in research, when we are doing research, there's a saying that we use. They say a year in research will save you an hour in the library. Right? So, in other words, spending an hour in the library in front of a computer would save you a year that you would waste in research, because the research has already been done and published. So, similarly, spending time to get the information is worth more than the time that you spend. So, get the most information possible about what you're doing. Spend time on that. That's worth it than trying to do it and learning the hard way. The last thing is finding somebody as not as just a mentor, as one of the actors at the time of the Academy Award said, I want to have somebody to look up to every day. I can't remember his name, but he said, I want somebody to look up to every day, and I want somebody to chase every day, and I want somebody to look forward to every day. So similarly, you need to have somebody to look forward to and to chase. Suppose say you want to become, say, a pediatrician, as you said you're interested in. You need to have a pediatrician in mind who has achieved what you are looking to achieve in the future. It's easy to just go and ask him or her how she did it or he did it. That's a lot easier way. They will show you the right path, easier, fastest route to get there. Otherwise, you'll be just, going around trying to figure it out. So if you do those two things, get the information, find somebody whom you want to be like in the future, and don't waste time, you'll be very successful.
So many great pieces of advice for myself and also for so many of the people in our community within our younger generation. I think that's pretty much all we have for today. I really appreciate you. I think we all really appreciate you taking your time to speak with us with TASMiNA and for giving us your valuable time and teaching us all these things about yourself and giving us these life lessons.
Thank you.
So Jazakallah khair for that.
Jazakallah. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum salam.